Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The hyperspanner slipped from Aaron Rich's fingers, clattering against the metal floor of his dilapidated repair hangar. The constant drumming of rain on the roof had finally found a rhythm that matched his heartbeat, monotonous and steady, just how he liked his days to be. "Damn it," he muttered, fishing the tool from beneath a pile of discarded engine parts. "That's the third time today, boss." Rusty whirred from the corner, his outdated servos grinding as he swiveled his cylindrical head. The droid's voice box crackled with an ancient Earth accent. "Perhaps your coordination circuits need recalibration? Or is it just your usual morning incompetence?" Aaron glared at his mechanical companion. "You know, most repair shops have droids that actually help instead of providing commentary." "Most repair shops aren't located in the armpit of the galaxy catering to criminals," Rusty countered, his optical sensors flickering in what Aaron had come to recognize as the droid's version of an eye roll. "Besides, you abandoned your prestigious galactic fleet position to escape imbeciles, as you so eloquently put it. I'm merely maintaining intellectual standards." Aaron wiped engine grease from his hands onto his already stained work pants. 8 photos hung crookedly on the wall behind him, a testament to his unlikely clientele. In one, he stood awkwardly beside the notorious smuggler Dex Clyde. In another, his grimace was barely visible next to Pirate Queen Lena Tatoon's toothy grin, not the career trajectory he'd imagined when graduating top of his class at the Fleet Engineering Academy. "Just run diagnostics on that converter while I finish this manifold," Aaron said, turning back to the half-dismantled ship engine suspended from his workshop ceiling. "Running diagnostics. Estimated completion time. Whenever I feel like it." Rusty hummed, extending a scanning arm toward the component. "Another day, another idiot's request for illegal modifications, eh, boss?" Before Aaron could respond, the hangar's entry port exploded open. The security sensors hadn't even registered a warning before a sleek, smoking spacecraft hurtled through the opening, scraping its hull against the doorframe with an ear-splitting screech. The ship, a modified Canopus-class cruiser with what appeared to be custom weapons attachments, skidded across the hangar floor, crashing into a storage rack. Tools, parts, and a rare collection of vintage flux capacitors cascaded to the floor in a deafening avalanche. Aaron ducked behind an old engine block, cursing as the chaos settled. "What the hell?" The ship's hatch released with a pressurized hiss, and a figure emerged through billowing smoke. She strode down the ramp with the confidence of someone who had never apologized for an entrance in her life. Green skin, not the sickly pale green of Torellian refugees or the mottled swamp green of Hex-world mercenaries, but vibrant emerald that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. Her midnight black hair cascaded down her back in intricate braids interwoven with what looked like miniature energy nodes. The curves of her body defied several laws of physics Aaron was intimately familiar with, and her expression carried the kind of fury that could power a small battlecruiser. "You," she pointed directly at Aaron, who had barely managed to stand up straight. "Are you the engineer who fixes things no questions asked?" Aaron cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the 3-day stubble on his face and the oil stains covering his clothes. "I'm Aaron Rich, and you just destroyed about 6 months' worth of rare parts." She dismissed his complaint with a wave of her hand, her eyes, startlingly violet against her green complexion, narrowing dangerously. "I'll compensate you for your junk. Right now, I need your expertise more than you need your organization system." Rusty rolled forward, his scanner beam sweeping over the newcomer. "Well, well, boss. Looks like today's idiot has arrived with flair." The woman's attention snapped to the droid. "Silence your antique before I repurpose him as a garbage receptacle." "He's already a garbage receptacle with a voice box," Aaron muttered. "Rusty, run diagnostics on her ship. Quietly." The droid grumbled but complied, extending his sensors toward the smoking vessel. "I'm listening," Aaron said, crossing his arms. "What's the emergency that justifies demolishing my hangar?" She reached into her form-fitting flight suit. which Aaron now noticed was adorned with insignia he didn't recognize, and pulled out what appeared to be a melted hyperdrive component, flinging it at his feet. "That's what's left of the premium upgraded hyperdrive I paid that snake Trell Voxus a fortune for." Her voice vibrated with rage. "I barely made it to this sector before the entire propulsion system started to melt down. He swore it was military grade. It's barely salvage grade." Aaron crouched to examine the component, letting out a low whistle. This isn't just bad, it's criminal. He essentially welded a standard commercial accelerator to a containment unit never designed to handle the output. He looked up at her. "You're lucky you didn't implode mid-jump." "Lucky isn't how I'd describe my current situation," she said, gesturing to her damaged ship. "I need it fixed. Yesterday." Aaron stood, calculating the work required. "It'll be expensive. The entire hyperdrive needs rebuilding, not just replacing, and those custom weapon mounts have compromised your hull integrity." "How much?" she demanded, crossing her arms in a posture that mirrored his own. A small smile tugged at the corner of Aaron's mouth. "More than you can afford, I'd wager." Her eyes flashed, and she stepped closer, close enough that he could smell something like exotic spices and ozone emanating from her. "Listen, human. Don't tell me what I can't afford, or I might demonstrate what your face can't afford when it meets my fist." Aaron found himself oddly unintimidated and somewhat amused, a dangerous combination in his experience. "Threats won't lower my price, but they will add a surcharge for hostile work environment." For a fleeting moment, something like respect flickered across her face before she masked it with continued irritation. "Just give me the assessment so I can decide if it's worth keeping you alive to do the work." "Rusty, assessment," Aaron called over his shoulder. The droid's scanner beams retracted with a zip. "Primary hyperdrive. Catastrophic failure. Secondary systems. Compromised. Hull integrity. 62%. Weapon systems. Illegal in 17 sectors. Life support. Functional but inefficient. My professional opinion. It's a miracle this flying death trap didn't vaporize her molecules across 3 star systems." "Thank you for that thorough and tactful analysis," Aaron said dryly. He turned back to the green-skinned woman. "I'm going to need at least 3 days, and that's if I work through the nights. Plus, parts, genuine parts, not the garbage Voxus sold you." She paced around her ship, examining the damage herself. "I don't have 3 days. I have 12 hours before I need to be in the Centauri quadrant." Aaron snorted. "Not in this ship you don't. Not unless you want to arrive as scattered atoms." "Fine." She spun to face him, frustration evident in every line of her body. 2 days. Your best work. Name your price." Aaron grabbed a datapad and began calculating. While inputting figures, he absent-mindedly reached into his pocket, pulled out an energy bar and broke it in half. Still focused on the calculations, he extended half toward her, a habit from long fleet shifts when he'd share rations with fellow engineers during emergency repairs. The moment hung suspended in the air. The woman froze, her eyes widening as she stared at the offered food as if it were a live explosive. Behind him, Rusty, servos whirred to an abrupt halt. "What?" Aaron asked through a mouthful of energy bar, finally looking up when she didn't take the offered piece. The woman's skin began to emit a subtle luminescence, darkening to a deeper shade of green while simultaneously glowing from within. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. You missed something critical. Human." Aaron swallowed his bite with difficulty. "I'm missing a lot of things right now, including what the hell you're talking about." Her voice rose with each word. "On my planet, when someone breaks food and shares it, they're..." She seemed to struggle with the words. "You just proposed marriage to me," Aaron choked, coughing violently as crumbs went down the wrong way. "I what?" Rusty emitted a sound that could only be described as mechanical laughter. "Oh, this is priceless, boss. I'd start composing your vows if I were you." "Shut up," Aaron hissed at the droid before turning back to the woman, whose skin was now pulsating with light. "Look, I wasn't. It's just food. I was being polite." Her expression shifted between mortification and something harder to define. Our customs are ancient and sacred. Breaking bread or any food is the most intimate gesture, symbolizing the joining of lives and resources. Well, that's not what it means where I come from, Aaron protested, still holding the offending half of the energy bar. Where I'm from, it just means, hey, want some food? Before she could respond, the hangar's entry port slammed open again. Aaron spun around, expecting more damage to his workshop. Instead, he found himself facing 6 tall, green-skinned warriors wielding a combination of ancient-looking spears and frighteningly modern energy weapons. Each wore armor that bore the same insignia as the woman's flight suit, but more elaborate. "Daphne Tempest!" the tallest called out, her voice booming through the hangar. "We tracked your ship's emergency signal. Are you—" The warrior stopped abruptly, her gaze shifting between Daphne and Aaron, then to the broken energy bar still extended between them. Her expression transformed from concern to jubilation. "Sisters!" she bellowed. "Witness! The prophecy fulfills itself. Our Daphne has found her mate." The other warriors erupted in cheers and battle cries, raising their weapons in celebration. Aaron took an instinctive step back. There's been a human!" The lead warrior strode forward, clasping his shoulder with bone-crushing strength. "You have chosen our sister. We, the daughters of Commander Zarn of the Green Legion, bless your union." "Legion?" Aaron croaked, looking desperately at Daphne. "Commander! Daphne. Apparently Daphne Tempest. Apparently a member of something called the Green Legion. Apparently now his fiancée." Stepped close and whispered urgently in his ear. "Listen to me carefully, human. My father is Commander Zarn, leader of the Green Legion, the most feared fighting force in 3 quadrants. These are my sisters, his elite guard." Her breath was warm against his ear. "If you reject me now, it will be considered an insult so grave that they will be honor-bound to disembowel you on the spot." Aaron's face drained of color. "And if I don't reject you?" "Then play along until I can get us both out of this mess," she hissed. "We just need to maintain the pretense until my ship is repaired and we can escape." "You know this is extortion, right?" Aaron whispered back. "I prefer to think of it as a mutually beneficial temporary alliance," Daphne replied, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, congratulations, boss," Rusty announced loudly. "You've graduated from fixing ships for criminals to becoming a political figure in interstellar diplomacy. Finally, your pathetic existence has become interesting." As the Green Legion warriors began to move equipment around his hangar, apparently preparing for some kind of impromptu celebration, Aaron realized his quiet, isolated life had just been vaporized as thoroughly as if he'd jumped to hyperspace in Daphne's damaged ship. Today was definitely not going according to plan. 6 hours after the worst repair job booking of his life, Aaron found himself crammed into the claustrophobic cockpit of Daphne's half-repaired ship, hurtling through the lower atmosphere of Nexus 7. Alarms blared as the hull temperature indicators flashed into the red zone. "I told you this wasn't ready for flight," Aaron shouted, frantically rerouting power from non-essential systems to strengthen the failing shields. "We're lucky if we don't disintegrate in the next 30 seconds. Daphne's hands danced across the flight controls with practiced precision. Her emerald skin glistened with exertion as she executed a series of maneuvers that defied several laws of physics. "Would you prefer to stay behind with my sisters?" she asked, not bothering to look at him as she pulled the ship into a tight barrel roll. They were already planning the ceremonial wedding tattoos. Very painful, very permanent. Aaron's stomach lurched as the artificial gravity fluctuated. At least tattoos don't involve actual death, which this escape plan definitely might. "Stop complaining, human. I've flown damaged ships through nebulous storms." She banked hard to port, narrowly avoiding a jutting rock formation. "Besides, you assured me the core modifications would hold. For maintenance testing in a controlled environment, not for outrunning a squadron of elite warriors through a canyon." From his secured position in the cargo hold, Rusty's voice crackled through the intercom. "Congratulations on your first marital dispute, boss. Statistically speaking, couples who survive near-death experiences together report greater relationship satisfaction." "Shut up, Rust!" they both shouted in unison. The ship shuddered violently as something struck the aft section. Warning indicators flashed across every console. "That was a targeted EMP blast," Daphne muttered, her violet eyes narrowing. "My sisters aren't trying to kill us. They're trying to disable us." "How comforting," Aaron growled, diving beneath the navigation console and yanking open an access panel. Sparks showered his face as he jammed his hands into the circuitry. "Hold course for exactly 23 seconds, then cut all power." Daphne's head snapped toward him. "Cut power? We'll drop like a stone." "Exactly." Aaron twisted two wires together, wincing as an electrical charge singed his fingers. "They're tracking our energy signature, not our mass. Kill the power, and we'll disappear from their sensors while we still have enough momentum to glide into that cloud bank." She stared at him for a split second, then turned back to the controls. "If we die, I'm going to be extremely disappointed in my choice of accidental husband." Aaron reconnected the emergency backup generator to the life support systems only. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1, now." The ship went dark. The engine's hum died. For one terrifying moment they hung suspended in silence. Then gravity reasserted itself. The vessel plummeted, slicing through the atmosphere at an angle that sent them hurtling toward a bank of dense, pink-tinged clouds. Daphne's knuckles whitened on the manual controls as she fought to maintain their trajectory without power. The view screen showed 3 Green Legion vessels sweeping past their position, continuing the search pattern above them. "They missed us," she whispered, a hint of genuine surprise in her voice. The cloud bank enveloped them, reducing visibility to 0. The only sound was their labored breathing and the rush of air against the hull. "Restore minimal power in 5 seconds, Aaron instructed, hand hovering over the emergency restart. Just enough for controlled descent, nothing that would register on long-range scanners. When power returned, the ship's systems came online at bare minimum capacity. Daphne guided them through the cloud cover, emerging above a dense forest canopy. She found a small clearing just big enough for their vessel and executed a landing rough enough to send Aaron sprawling across the cockpit floor. "Perfect," she announced, powering down the remaining systems. Aaron disentangled himself from a nest of loose cables. "Your definition of perfect needs serious revision." "We're alive, aren't we?" She unbuckled her harness and stood, stretching with feline grace that momentarily distracted Aaron from his catalog of complaints. "Now we need to assess the damage and plan our next move." Rusty rolled into the cockpit, his chassis dented from being tossed around during their descent. "Damage report. Extensive. Survival probability. Questionable. Likelihood of boss regretting his career choices. Absolute certainty." "Can you fix it?" Daphne asked Aaron, ignoring the droid. Aaron ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Maybe, probably, but not quickly, and not without parts I don't have." Daphne began gathering supplies from storage compartments. "Then we find somewhere to lay low until repairs are possible." "Lay low? We're on a completely unknown planet." She tossed him a survival pack. "Unknown to you, perhaps. We're on Viridia 3, an outpost world. Primitive, but populated. There should be a settlement within 20 kilometers." Aaron caught the pack reflexively. "And how exactly did you know where to crash land us?" A small smile played at the corner of her lips. "I didn't become an elite warrior by accident, human. I mapped potential emergency landing zones the moment we entered this system." "Impressive," Aaron admitted grudgingly. "And please stop calling me human. My name is Aaron." "I know your name, Aaron." The way she said it sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. Now, shall we secure the perimeter before night falls? The local fauna can be enthusiastic about newcomers. 3 hours later, they had established a defensible camp near the ship. Rusty remained aboard, running ongoing diagnostics and monitoring communications, while Aaron and Daphne constructed a shelter from local materials and emergency supplies. As Aaron struggled to secure a section of tarp against the increasingly strong wind, Daphne watched him with undisguised amusement. "You've really never been in the field, have you?" she asked, effortlessly completing a knot he had been fighting with for minutes. "I'm an engineer, not a survivalist," he grunted, stepping back to examine their makeshift shelter. "My idea of roughing it is a fleet barracks with only one shower. Yet you abandoned that comfortable life to fix ships for criminals in the galactic equivalent of a trash compactor." "I abandoned that life because I was surrounded by bureaucratic idiots who valued protocol over competence." He stabbed a support rod into the ground with unnecessary force. "At least the criminals appreciate good work without making me file reports in triplicate." Daphne tilted her head, studying him. "So, the genius engineer couldn't play nicely with others. Shocking. I play fine with others when they're not." He gestured vaguely. "Imbeciles?" she supplied. "Exactly." He stepped back, satisfied with the shelter. "What about you? How does the daughter of the feared Commander Zarn end up needing emergency repairs in the worst sector of space?" Daphne's expression shifted, guard going up. "My mission details are classified." "Right, because I'm definitely going to report them to someone. Maybe one of my high-ranking criminal clients." He rolled his eyes. "Look, if we're going to be married, I should at least know what my wife does for a living." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You understand that most of our marriage is a fabrication, yes? The part where sharing food equals a lifetime commitment. Yeah, I figured that out." He sat on a fallen log, stretching his tired muscles. "But your sisters seemed pretty convinced." Daphne sighed and joined him on the log, maintaining a careful distance. "The food-sharing ritual is real. It's an ancient custom from when resources were scarce. To share food was to demonstrate trust and commitment." She glanced at him. "What isn't entirely accurate is the immediate marriage part. It's more like a formal proposal. There's usually a ceremony, acceptance periods, family negotiations. So I'm not actually married to you? More like engaged, betrothed." She tapped her fingers against the log. "But my sisters, they're traditionalists, and they've been concerned about my lack of suitable partners." Aaron laughed. "So they were just excited you finally found someone desperate enough to propose." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "I have rejected 17 suitors from the most prestigious warrior clans in the quadrant. I'm hardly desperate." "Then why play along with this charade?" She looked away. "My mission is complex. Having them believe I've finally chosen a mate keeps them distracted from asking too many questions about my actual purpose here." Aaron sensed there was more she wasn't saying, but before he could press further, a distant howl echoed through the forest. Daphne was instantly on her feet, hand on the weapon at her hip. "That's closer than it should be," she murmured, scanning the tree line. Aaron stood slowly. "What exactly is that?" "Viridian stalker, pack predator, highly intelligent." She drew her blaster. "Get inside the shelter." "I'm not hiding while you—" "This isn't a negotiation, Aaron." For the first time, her tone carried real authority, not the playful banter he'd grown accustomed to. "I'm trained for this. You're not—" Another howl sounded, answered by several more from different directions. They were being surrounded. "Fine, but take this." He pressed a small device into her hand. "Sonic disruptor. Should confuse their auditory hunting systems." She looked at the device, then at him with newfound curiosity. Not standard fleet issue. I might have made some modifications. He shrugged. Criminal clientele has its advantages. A flicker of respect crossed her features before she nodded toward the shelter. Inside, now. Aaron reluctantly complied, watching through a gap in the tarp as Daphne positioned herself between the shelter and the approaching threat. Her stance shifted, becoming predatory and fluid. The green glow of her skin seemed to intensify as she activated the sonic disruptor and readied her weapon. The first creature burst from the underbrush, a sleek, six-limbed predator with gleaming fangs and phosphorescent eyes. Daphne moved with impossible speed, firing a precise shot that dropped the beast instantly. Two more charged from opposite directions. She ducked, rolled, and eliminated one with another shot, then engaged the second in hand-to-hand combat when it got too close. Aaron watched in awe as she executed a series of combat maneuvers that seemed to defy gravity. Her movements were both brutally efficient and strangely beautiful. When the last attacker fell, she stood among them, barely breathing hard, emerald skin shimmering with exertion. "You can come out now," she called, holstering her weapon. Aaron emerged from the shelter, surveying the carnage. "That was impressive." "Basic field training," she replied modestly, though he detected a hint of pride in her voice. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." She wiped a smear of greenish blood from her knuckles. "Too late for that, I'm afraid. You already proposed marriage without even buying me dinner first." Despite himself, Aaron laughed. "Technically, I did offer you food. Half an energy bar." She sniffed disdainfully. Not exactly the courtship ritual of legends. As they secured the perimeter against further attacks, Aaron found himself watching her movements with newfound appreciation. She wasn't just beautiful. She was lethal, competent, and far more complex than he had initially assumed. "You know," he said as they entered the shelter for the night, "for an accidental fiancé, you're not terrible company." Daphne arranged her weapons within easy reach before settling onto her sleeping pad. "You're only saying that because I saved your life." "Partially," he admitted, "but also because most of my clients try to kill me after I tell them how much repairs will cost. You just accidentally married me. It's refreshing." In the dim light of their emergency lamp, he could have sworn he saw her lips curve into a genuine smile. "Get some sleep, Aaron," she said, her voice softer than he had heard it before. "Tomorrow, we find civilization and figure out our next move." "Which is?" She turned toward him, violet eyes gleaming in the darkness. "You do realize that by now, news of our union has spread throughout the sector? Both my allies and enemies will be looking for us." "Enemies?" Aaron groaned. "Of course you have enemies. Why wouldn't you have enemies?" "I'm the daughter of Commander Zarn," she replied simply, as if that explained everything. Which, Aaron supposed, it did. "Great. So instead of just fixing ships for criminals, I'm now on the run with a green warrior princess with a price on her head." "I'm not a princess," she corrected. "More like a special operations commander." "Even better." She reached out and patted his arm in mock sympathy. "Don't worry, husband. I'll protect you." "That's not how this works," he protested. "I'm supposed to be the one protecting you." Daphne laughed, a surprisingly melodic sound. "You humans and your outdated gender norms. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that your wife can bench press you one-handed." "Could you really?" Aaron asked before he could stop himself. The look she gave him made his heart rate accelerate in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "Sleep well, Aaron," she said, turning away. "You'll need your strength tomorrow." As he settled onto his own sleeping pad, Aaron realized that his peaceful, solitary life repairing ships in obscurity was well and truly over, and strangest of all, he wasn't entirely sure he wanted it back. Morning arrived with an ambush. Aaron jolted awake to the muzzle of a peculiar crystalline weapon pressed against his forehead. The wielder, a humanoid figure with vibrant purple skin marked with intricate bioluminescent patterns, stared down at him through multifaceted eyes. "Rise, outsiders," the being commanded in surprisingly melodic standard. "The Emerald Oracle foretold your arrival." Aaron glanced sideways to find Daphne already awake, her expression carefully neutral as 6 similar beings surrounded them. She caught his eye and gave an imperceptible shake of her head, a warning not to resist. "What is this?" Aaron hissed as they were marched from their shelter. "Viridians," Daphne whispered back. "Indigenous religious sect. Harmless mostly. The mostly part is what concerns me." Their captors led them through dense jungle for nearly an hour before the trees parted to reveal a sprawling settlement built into the living forest itself. Massive bioorganic structures spiraled around ancient trees, connected by bridges of woven vines. Hundreds of the purple-skinned beings stopped their activities to stare as Aaron and Daphne were escorted toward a central pavilion that pulsed with internal light. "I thought you said this planet was primitive," Aaron muttered. "Technologically primitive," Daphne corrected. "Culturally complex." Inside the pavilion, Aaron blinked against the sudden dimness. As his eyes adjusted, he made out a circular chamber filled with Viridians in elaborate ceremonial attire. At the center stood what appeared to be Rusty, his dented chassis now adorned with vines and glowing crystals. "Rusty?" Aaron called out. "What the hell?" The droid swiveled toward him. "Ah, boss. Welcome to my new congregation. They found me by the ship and decided I'm something called the Metal Oracle. I've been promoted from trash compactor to deity." Before Aaron could respond, an elderly Viridian with elaborate head crest stepped forward, raising gnarled hands toward the ceiling. "Behold," the elder proclaimed, voice echoing through the chamber. "The prophecy fulfilled. The one who shares sustenance with the Emerald Daughter has come to guide us through the great convergence." The assembled crowd dropped to their knees, emitting a harmonic hum that vibrated through Aaron's chest. The elder approached, scrutinizing Aaron with unnerving intensity before jabbing a bony finger at his chest. "You are the great prophesied companion of our queen." Aaron took an instinctive step backward. "What? What companion?" Daphne stepped closer, her expression a mixture of amusement and calculation. "Well, since we're married," she murmured, clearly enjoying his discomfort. "This isn't funny," he hissed back. "It's a little funny," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. The elder clasped their hands together. "The union of earth and emerald, foretold in the ancient crystals. You will lead us through the darkness." Rusty rolled forward. "According to my linguistic analysis of their sacred texts, which they helpfully uploaded to my systems, you're essentially their messiah now, boss. Congratulations on the promotion, from repair shop owner to deity's consort in under a week." "This is insane," Aaron muttered. "We need to get out of here." "Actually," Daphne said thoughtfully, "this could work to our advantage. They have resources, they're isolated, and they clearly want to help us." The next 3 days were a blur of elaborate ceremonies, feasts, and rituals that Aaron barely comprehended. The Viridians replaced Rusty's damaged panels with a sleek golden alloy that the droid preened over constantly. "Finally appreciated for my true worth," Rusty announced, his newly enhanced vocal processors resonating with smug satisfaction. "You should try Divinity sometime, boss. The perks are excellent." Aaron, meanwhile, found himself demonstrating basic engineering principles that the Viridians interpreted as miraculous powers. When he repaired their water filtration system using principles of fluid dynamics, they proclaimed it divine manipulation of the life essence. When he constructed a simple electrical generator from salvage parts, they called it capturing the Sci-Fi spirit. Daphne played her role perfectly, alternating between regal aloofness in public and increasingly intimate companionship in private. Each night she revealed more about herself, her training as an elite operative, her complicated relationship with her father, her secret mission that she still refused to fully disclose. Aaron found himself looking forward to these conversations more than he cared to admit. On the fourth night, following a particularly exhausting ritual where Aaron had been required to commune with the ancient energies, basically rewire their communications array, they were escorted to an elaborate chamber constructed entirely from living plants. Bioluminescent flowers cast the room in soft, shifting light. A massive bed of woven fibers dominated the center, strewn with petals that released a subtly intoxicating scent. Daphne entered behind him, now dressed in ceremonial garments that the Viridians had provided. Diaphanous emerald fabric that complemented her skin and clung to her curves in ways that made it difficult for Aaron to maintain eye contact. "They certainly take this royal couple business seriously," she said, examining the luxurious surroundings. "Yeah, well, I'd trade all this for a functioning hyperdrive and a clear flight path," Aaron replied, though his conviction wavered as Daphne approached. "You know," she said, her violet eyes reflecting the bioluminescent light, "there's another tradition among my people." She began unfastening the elaborate clasps of her ceremonial robe. "The union must be confirmed." Aaron's mouth went dry. "And what happens if we don't confirm it?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "According to Viridian tradition, we'll be sacrificed to the ancient deity of unfulfilled prophecies at dawn." "That's convenient," he managed to say, as she closed the distance between them. "I don't make the rules, Aaron," she murmured against his ear, her skin radiating warmth. "I just know when to follow them. For survival purposes, of course." "Of course," he agreed, his hands finding her waist. "Then, for our safety." Their lips met in a kiss that started tentative but quickly blazed into something neither of them had anticipated. The careful distance they'd maintained dissolved as months of isolation, and days of pretense culminated in a moment of genuine connection. They were interrupted by the chamber door bursting open. A panicked Viridian acolyte stood in the doorway, multifaceted eyes wide with terror. "Emerald Queen, prophesied one, the skies burn with great ships, the Green Legion has found us, and they do not come alone. Ancient enemies follow in their wake." Aaron leapt to his feet, fumbling for clothes while Daphne was already securing her weapons with practiced efficiency. The romantic moment evaporated like morning dew under twin suns. "How much time do we have?" she demanded of the terrified acolyte. "Minutes only, Emerald Queen. The sky vessels approach rapidly." Aaron yanked on his boots. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Daphne's expression hardened into something he hadn't seen before. Not the playful warrior or the flirtatious companion, but a military commander assessing an imminent threat. "If it's who I think it is, we're caught between two forces that have been at war for centuries." She secured her final weapon and turned to Aaron. "My father's Green Legion and the Obsidian Dominion. And they're both here? Now?" Aaron raked a hand through his hair. "That's one hell of a coincidence." "Not coincidence," she said grimly. "I'd bet my life that Rusty's sacred communications array you repaired has been broadcasting our location." They sprinted through the bio-organic corridors of the Viridian settlement, emerging onto a central platform where panicked locals gathered, pointing skyward. Aaron's stomach dropped as he followed their gaze. Through breaks in the clouds, he counted at least 12 ships, 5 bearing the unmistakable emerald sigils of the Green Legion, 7 with the black, angular silhouettes of what must be the Obsidian Dominion. Rusty rolled up beside them, his golden chassis gleaming in the emergency lights. "Boss, the locals are calling this the prophesized convergence, but I think we just call it being royally screwed." "What's the strategic situation?" Daphne asked, all business now. "Green Legion vessels are positioning defensively around the planet. Obsidian forces are deploying for an offensive pattern." "Rusty, mate." sensor's word. Probability of ground assault within 30 minutes, 94.7%. The Viridian elder approached, trembling but determined. The prophecy speaks of this moment, when the Emerald Daughter and her chosen would lead us through the final convergence. Aaron grabbed Daphne's arm. We need to get out of here, now. We can't. She pulled away, surveying the gathering crowd of frightened Viridians. The Obsidian Dominion will obliterate this settlement just to get to me. What do they want with you? Daphne's eyes met his, and for the first time she looked vulnerable. The mission I wouldn't tell you about? I stole their most advanced weapon schematic, technology that could turn the tide of this war. That's why I needed my ship repaired so urgently. The pieces clicked into place in Aaron's mind. The data was in your ship. She nodded. Hidden in a modified flux capacitor that I told that idiot Voxus was a hyperdrive upgrade, which he replaced with garbage, Aaron finished. So the data is still in your workshop, presumably. A blinding beam of light cut through the clouds, striking the forest 2 kilometers from their position. The ground shook with the impact, followed by the roar of trees vaporizing. Warning shot, Daphne said unnecessarily. They want me to surrender. Aaron watched the terror spreading through the Viridian crowd. These people had taken them in, protected them, worshipped them, albeit under some bizarre misunderstanding. And now they were in the crossfire of a war they had nothing to do with. Something shifted in Aaron's mind. He'd spent years avoiding responsibility, blaming idiots for his problems, retreating to the galactic backwater where no one would bother him. But now, looking between Daphne's resigned face and the Viridian's hopeful yet terrified expressions, he felt a long dormant sense of purpose stirring. The Green Legion ships, he said suddenly. How old are they, technologically speaking? Daphne blinked at the apparent non sequitur. 20, maybe 30 years behind current military spec. It's why we've been losing ground to the Obsidian Dominion. And the Viridian communication array I fixed, what's its broadcast capacity? Rusty's optical sensors focused on Aaron. I know that look, boss. That's your I'm about to do something brilliant or get us all killed look. Aaron ignored him, already pulling a datapad from his pocket and sketching rapid calculations. Daphne, I need to know exactly what weapon systems the Obsidian Dominion uses, specifically their targeting protocols and shield modulation frequencies. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You're thinking of hacking their systems? Yes. Aaron's fingers flew across the datapad. Rusty, get me access to that communications array. We're going to need to broadcast on frequencies that will interfere with their targeting systems. And how exactly do you propose to do that without their encryption codes? Daphne challenged, though hope had crept into her voice. Aaron's smile was sharp enough to cut Durasteel. Do you know why I really left the Galactic Fleet? I developed a universal override system that could penetrate any military-grade communications protocol. My superiors wanted to weaponize it. I refused and took the schematics with me. You stole military secrets? Daphne's eyebrows rose. And you've been hiding in that junkyard fixing criminal ships ever since. Ethical disagreement, not theft, Aaron corrected. And yes, hiding was easier than fighting. Until now, she said softly. Their eyes locked for a moment that felt suspended in time. Then Aaron turned to the elder. I need your best techs, all the power you can reroute to the communications array, and anyone with engineering experience. The elder bowed deeply. The prophecy said the chosen one would command the invisible forces to turn back the darkness. It shall be as you require. 6 frantic hours later, Aaron was knee-deep in modified circuitry, sweat pouring down his face as he integrated his override protocols into the Viridian communications system. Above them, the battle had begun, Green Legion ships valiantly but ineffectively engaging the superior Obsidian fleet. Occasional explosions illuminated the night sky as another Legion vessel took critical damage. Rusty hovered at his side, components exposed as Aaron had repurposed some of the droid's newer parts for the hack. Do I want to know what my probability calculations for success would be right now? No, Aaron grunted, soldering a final connection. "And don't tell me either." Daphne entered the chamber, now dressed in full battle armor that the Viridians had crafted from local materials infused with bioluminescent crystals. The green of her skin complemented the armor in a way that made her look otherworldly and formidable. "We've got 15 minutes tops," she reported. "My father's flagship is taking heavy damage, and I've intercepted communications that Obsidian ground forces have landed on the far side of the continent." Aaron connected the final wire and the entire array hummed to life, crystals glowing with energy. "It's ready, but I need to explain the plan." He sketched it out quickly. They would use the modified communications array to broadcast on oscillating frequencies that would penetrate obsidian shields, creating a false target signature that would redirect their weapons fire. Meanwhile, the Green Legion ships would receive a coded transmission allowing them to synchronize their attacks for maximum impact. "The trick," Aaron explained, pointing to his calculations, "is forcing their systems to divert shield power to compensate for the phantom signals. When they do, there will be a 3-second vulnerability window in their primary weapons array." Daphne studied the plan. "And if they don't take the bait?" "Then we're vaporized," Aaron said bluntly. "But from what you've told me about their tactical protocols, they'll follow standard procedure." "Because they're predictable," Daphne realized. "Exactly. Military minds follow patterns. That's what made the fleet so insufferable." Aaron looked up at her. "Your father's forces need to be ready to strike the instant the window opens. Can you get them that information?" Daphne hesitated, then removed a small communicator from her armor. "I wasn't supposed to use this except in absolute emergency. It's a direct line to my father's command deck." As she relayed the plan, Aaron made final adjustments to the array, pausing only when he noticed Rusty unusually quiet beside him. "Something wrong, Rust?" The droid's sensors focused on him. "Just processing the statistical anomaly of witnessing your transformation from misanthropic repair shop owner to potential savior of an entire planet within the span of a week." A pause. "It's quite refreshing, actually." A massive explosion rocked the settlement, sending crystalline shards cascading from the ceiling. Daphne rushed back, eyes wide. "They've targeted the central structure. They know we're here." Aaron activated the array. Energy surged through the system, crystal amplifiers glowing with increasing intensity as his improvised code penetrated the Obsidian fleet's communications. "It's working," he said, watching data flow across his screen. "Their targeting systems are recalibrating." An alarm blared from his console. "They're deploying a counteroffensive, some kind of energy weapon aimed directly at our position." Daphne looked at the readouts, her face paling beneath the green. "That's a planetary strike cannon. If it hits, this entire region will be vaporized." Aaron's mind raced through calculations. "We can redirect our shield transmitters to reflect the energy back at them, but someone will need to manually reset the primary reactor core." "I'll do it," Daphne said immediately, moving toward the door. "No!" Aaron caught her arm. "I designed this system. I'm the one who knows how to calibrate it correctly." He turned to Rusty. "Keep the transmission going, no matter what." "Boss, the probability of survival if you—" "Not now, Rust." Aaron turned back to Daphne, aware that this could be the last time he saw her. For all the absurdity of their meeting, the accidental proposal, the charade of marriage, somewhere along the way, it had become real for him. Not the marriage, perhaps, but something deeper, more genuine than anything he'd felt in years of self-imposed isolation. "I'm just an engineer," he said quietly. "You're a warrior. Your people need you more than they need me." Before she could protest, he leaned forward and kissed her. Not the tentative kiss from earlier, but something fierce and certain. Then he broke away and sprinted toward the reactor chamber. The underground passage to the reactor core felt endless. Above him, he could hear the battle raging, feel the vibrations of explosions through the living walls of the Viridian structure. When he reached the core, a massive crystal suspended in a chamber of pulsing bioorganic material, he immediately saw the problem. The transmission was overwhelming the crystal's natural resonance. Aaron worked with frantic precision, rerouting power conduits, recalibrating energy flows, his hands moving instinctively through adjustments that might have taken a team of engineers hours. In the back of his mind, he counted down the seconds until the obsidian weapon would fire. The crystal began to pulse with increasing brightness, its frequency shifting as Aaron completed his modifications. He had just connected the final relay when his datapad showed the obsidian weapon powering up to maximum charge. Come on, he muttered, watching energy levels spike dangerously into the red zone. The entire chamber suddenly filled with blinding light as the obsidian weapon fired. Aaron threw himself behind a shield barrier, feeling the temperature in the room skyrocket as the crystal absorbed, then redirected the massive energy surge back through the transmission array. For one terrifying moment, it seemed the crystal would shatter from the strain. Then the energy found its path, roaring back through the modified conduits and out through the communications array, amplified and redirected. Aaron's datapad showed the impossible. The redirected energy had struck the Obsidian flagship's exposed weapons array, creating a cascade failure through their entire system. Simultaneously, the Green Legion ships concentrated fire on the newly vulnerable targets. Through the rumbling chaos, Aaron heard Rusty's voice over the communicator. "Boss, it worked. The Obsidian flagship is going down." Aaron allowed himself a moment of triumph before the reactor chamber began to collapse around him. A support beam crashed down, pinning his leg as bioluminescent fluid leaked from ruptured conduits. "Rust," he gasped into his communicator. "Tell Daphne, tell her." Darkness claimed him before he could finish the thought. Consciousness returned to Aaron in confusing fragments. The antiseptic smell of medical equipment, the steady beep of monitoring devices. Pain, dull and distant, suggesting powerful analgesics. The sensation of bandages wrapped tight around his torso and leg. He forced his eyes open, wincing at the brightness. The ceiling above was not the bioorganic material of the Viridian structure, but the polished metal of a starship. Military grade by the looks of it. "The prodigal engineer awakens," came a familiar voice, mechanical but somehow warmer than he remembered. "About time, boss. You've been unconscious for 3 days." Aaron turned his head to find Rusty beside the bed, his golden chassis now adorned with an official-looking insignia, the emblem of the Green Legion. "What happened?" Aaron's voice was rough from disuse. "The short version? You succeeded, nearly died, and became a war hero." Rusty's optical sensors adjusted focus. "The long version involves a very angry green woman carrying you through a collapsing structure while cursing your heroics in 17 different languages." Aaron attempted to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Daphne? Commander Tempest is currently briefing her father on the battle outcome. She's threatened maintenance dismantling for any medical staff who let you out of bed before she returns." A flood of memories returned. The redirected weapon, the cascade failure in the Obsidian fleet, the reactor chamber collapsing around him. The Viridians. Evacuated safely. They're hailing you as the fulfillment of their prophecy, by the way. Apparently, the Chosen One will sacrifice himself to redirect the fire of the stars. Very dramatic. But I didn't sacrifice myself. I'm alive. Rusty's head tilted in what Aaron had come to recognize as his version of a shrug. Prophecies are notoriously flexible in their interpretation. They're just thrilled their planet wasn't vaporized. The door slid open with a mechanical hiss. Aaron's breath caught as Daphne entered, now dressed in the formal uniform of a Green Legion commander. The emerald of her skin contrasted sharply with the deep black of her uniform, accented with silver insignia that marked her high rank. Her long black hair was pulled back in an intricate braid, revealing the elegant strength of her features. She dismissed the medical staff with a gesture and approached his bed, her expression unreadable. "So," she said, crossing her arms, "you decided to play the hero." Aaron attempted a weak smile. "I'm an engineer. I fixed the problem. By nearly getting yourself killed." But there was no real anger in her voice, just something that sounded suspiciously like relief. "What happened with the Obsidian Dominion?" Daphne's posture relaxed slightly. "Your plan worked perfectly. When their flagship went down, it created a command vacuum. The rest of their fleet retreated to defensive positions. She sat on the edge of his bed. My father's strategists say it set their war efforts back by years, possibly decades. And the weapons data? Secure. A Green Legion team retrieved it from your workshop. A small smile played at her lips. They also found 16 illegal ship modifications, 3 unregistered weapons prototypes, and what appears to be a very rare collection of pre-colonial Centaurian art. Research materials, Aaron said innocently. Of course. Her smile widened. My father wants to meet you, by the way. The man who accidentally married his daughter and then saved the Green Legion. Aaron winced. About that marriage thing. Yes, we should clarify that situation. Daphne's expression turned serious. Under the laws of my people, sharing food does constitute a formal proposal, but not a binding marriage. That requires a ceremony, family negotiations, and mutual consent. So we're not married. Not technically, no. A strange disappointment settled in Aaron's chest. After all they'd been through, the revelation that their supposed relationship had been entirely fictional felt wrong somehow. My father has offered you a position with the Green Legion, Daphne continued. Head of engineering development. You'd have access to resources beyond anything you could acquire in your workshop. Working for the military again, Aaron said flatly, surrounded by regulations and idiots with rank. Actually, you'd report directly to me. Her violet eyes held his. And I think you've already established I'm not an idiot. Rusty interjected. She's offering you a job, boss. Try to keep up. Aaron ignored the droid. And if I decline? Daphne stood, pacing beside his bed. Then you're free to return to your repair shop, with the Legion's gratitude, of course, and probably some medals you'll never wear. Aaron studied her, trying to read beneath the composed exterior. What do you want, Daphne? She stopped pacing, something vulnerable flashing across her features. I want... She hesitated, then continued more firmly. I want you to stay, not because of some ridiculous accidental proposal or mistaken marriage, not because my father needs your engineering brilliance, but because when you kissed me before running into that reactor chamber, I realized I wasn't ready for it to be goodbye. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of the medical monitors. Rusty, displaying unprecedented tact, quietly rolled toward the door. I'll just be outside, monitoring. Something important. When they were alone, Aaron reached for Daphne's hand. So, let me clarify. We're not married. Correct. But you'd like me to stick around. Also correct. As your subordinate. She smirked. Technically, though I'm open to renegotiating the power dynamics in private settings. Aaron couldn't help but laugh, then winced as his injuries protested. I left the fleet because I couldn't stand taking orders from idiots. I might be willing to take them from you, though, occasionally. Very occasionally, I imagine. Her fingers intertwined with his. So, is that a yes? Aaron pretended to consider. Does the position come with benefits? Extensive ones. She leaned closer. Including, if you're interested, the appropriate courtship rituals that might eventually lead to a real marriage proposal, though perhaps with something more substantial than half an energy bar. I don't know, Aaron said, pulling her closer. That energy bar led to quite an adventure. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like both an ending and a beginning. The door slid open again as Rusty returned, now accompanied by an imposing green-skinned man whose elaborate uniform marked him as a high commander, presumably Daphne's father. I see the engineer is recovering well, the commander said dryly. Daphne straightened but didn't release Aaron's hand. Father, this is Aaron Rich. Aaron, this is Commander Zarn of the Green Legion. Aaron attempted to sit up straighter. Sir. Zarn's expression remained stern, but his eyes held a hint of amusement. So, you're the human who accidentally proposed to my daughter, then proceeded to save our fleet with improvised technology. That's Accurate, sir. Hmm. The commander studied him thoughtfully. Daphne tells me you have an aversion to military hierarchy. Aaron glanced at Daphne. I have an aversion to incompetence, sir, which sometimes correlates with hierarchy. To his surprise, Zarn laughed, a deep, genuine sound. I believe we will get along well, Aaron Rich. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and regarding that accidental proposal, on our world, the traditional courtship period is 100 days before the formal bonding ceremony. I suggest you use that time to determine if you're truly compatible. After he departed, Rusty rolled forward. Well, boss, looks like you've traded fixing ships for criminals to being part of a family of elite green warriors. An improvement, I'd say, though I anticipate your complaints will merely shift focus rather than diminish in volume. Aaron looked at Daphne, who was watching him with a mixture of affection and challenge that made his heart race in a way no danger ever had. You know, he said quietly, I might just have fewer things to complain about these days. Daphne smiled, her skin glowing with that subtle luminescence he'd come to associate with her happiness. Don't worry, I'm sure I can provide you with plenty of new material. She leaned in to kiss him again. After all, we have at least 100 days to figure out if this accidental engagement was the universe's biggest mistake or its most unlikely success. Rusty. Mechanical sigh filled the room. Great! 100 days of watching you two. Perhaps I should request a memory wipe. But as Aaron pulled Daphne closer, laughing against her lips, he knew with absolute certainty that sharing that energy bar had been the most fortunate mistake of his life. The end.